My name is Marisa, and I was 27 when this story began. My life felt simple and predictable at that time. I worked, paid my bills, met friends when I had the energy, and returned to my apartment each evening without expecting any surprises. I did not imagine that a quiet man would enter my life and slowly change the rhythm of my days. I never thought I would fall in love with someone so different from me. This is how everything started. It began in London, where I lived in a small apartment with 2 bedrooms. My old roommate left suddenly because she found a job in another city. I needed help with the rent, so I placed an online advertisement for a new person to share the apartment with me. A week later, a man named Lucian came to see the room. He was tall, with tidy clothes and a calm presence. His brown eyes looked gentle, and he held a few books in his hands instead of a phone. Lucian told me that he had moved from a small and quiet town. He came to London because he had accepted a new job in engineering. His voice was deep and even, and he spoke slowly, as if he chose his words with care. He mentioned that he did not speak much and preferred simple routines. He seemed shy but sincere, and something about his quiet nature made me curious. The city outside was loud, crowded, and full of fast movement. Lucien looked like he had arrived from another world. His calm manner almost felt out of place in such a busy environment. I did not realize then that allowing him to live with me would change many things in my life. He became my roommate the very next day. Lucian lived differently from anyone I had shared a home with before. He was polite, quiet, and always respectful. He kept his part of the apartment clean without being asked. Every morning he woke up early, made himself a cup of tea, and sat in the kitchen reading one of his old books. I often saw him sitting there in the soft morning light, completely focused on his reading. My days were very different. I worked in marketing, so my schedule was long and often stressful. Some evenings were busy with meetings or events, and other nights I returned home late after spending time with friends. My life moved fast, while Lucien's moved slowly. When I came home tired, I often found him in the kitchen, still reading or preparing a simple dinner. Many times he made extra food and placed a plate for me on the table without saying much. His quiet kindness felt warm after long, noisy days. One evening, my curiosity grew stronger. I wondered why he never went anywhere. Lucian always stayed at home after work. He did not seem to have friends in the city, and he rarely received any messages. When I passed by the living room, I often found him reading or writing in a small notebook. His life seemed empty from the outside, but he looked peaceful in it. I began to notice small things about the way he looked at me. Lucien never stared, but when he thought I was not paying attention, his eyes followed me with a soft admiration. He always looked away quickly when I turned my head toward him. His expression showed interest, but not pressure. It felt like he had feelings he did not know how to express. His quiet nature made me think more about him. I wondered why he lived with so much calm and why he carried such innocence. Lucien was gentle in every movement, and his silence was full of meaning. Each day, his presence became more noticeable. I found myself watching him too, trying to understand the world inside him. One Friday evening, I came home feeling emotional and tired. Something difficult had happened with my ex-partner earlier that day. I entered the apartment, placed my bag near the door, and tried to calm myself. Lucien was already in the living room with a cup of warm tea in his hand. He walked toward me without rushing and offered me the cup with a quiet expression. His simple gesture made me sit down on the couch beside him. We stayed there for a while in silence. I cried softly, and he did not try to force words or solutions. He stayed near me, offering steady comfort with his calm presence. When I looked at him in the warm light of the room, I saw a peaceful face and careful hands. His nearness created a new feeling inside me, something I had not expected. I reached out my hand slowly and touched his. Lucien became completely still. His eyes widened with surprise, and he looked uncertain about what the moment meant. I asked him gently if he had ever been close to anyone before. His face grew red with embarrassment, and he looked down for a moment. Then he answered with simple honesty that he had never been with anyone. The air between us shifted as soon as he said that. The room felt different, almost delicate. I saw the truth in his eyes. His quiet personality, his careful movements, his soft admiration toward me all made sense. He carried a kind of innocence that I had never seen in an adult man before. It felt meaningful and unexpected. That moment became the beginning of something neither of us planned. Before I tell you the rest of my story, please subscribe, share, and let me know in the comments where you are listening from. Your support means a lot. Now, let's continue. After that quiet moment on the couch, the connection between Lucien and me began to grow in a way that felt slow and steady. He continued to move through the apartment with the same calm habits, but now he watched me with a new kind of awareness. His attention seemed warmer, almost as if he was studying every detail around him to understand his place in my life. I also felt more aware of him, even during the simplest moments. The way he held a cup, the way he folded his clothes, or the way he paused before entering a room began to carry new meaning. One evening, the apartment was quiet, and I was sitting in the kitchen finishing a late dinner. Lucien walked in with a small towel in his hands. He said he was going to wash the dishes even though they were mine. He did not speak loudly, but his soft, gentle approach made the room feel calmer. When he stood near the sink, I noticed his hands shaking slightly, and I understood that he was nervous around me after our last moment on the couch. I realized that my touch had affected him more deeply than I first thought. Days passed, and the silence between us became more comfortable. We did not speak much about emotions, yet they moved quietly around us. The apartment held a soft tension, not unpleasant but full of unspoken thoughts. Lucien often stayed close without trying to draw too much attention. When he walked past me, I sensed him holding his breath for a brief second. When he sat on the couch, he always left a small space between us, as if he wanted to be near, but also wanted to respect my boundaries. One rainy Friday night, everything changed. I returned home with a tired mind and a feeling of heaviness from a long week. I took off my shoes and entered the living room where Lucien was reading on the couch. When he lifted his eyes to look at me, I felt a soft concern from him. He placed his book aside and sat in a quiet, thoughtful way, waiting for me to settle down. I sat next to him without speaking. The rain outside the window made the room feel still and safe. Lucien remained calm beside me, offering a steady presence. His silence felt supportive. I leaned back against the couch and let my tiredness show. After a moment, my hand rested near his. His fingers slowly moved closer, not touching but wanting to. I placed my hand over his to reassure him. His breath caught lightly, and his eyes widened the same way they did the first time I touched him. We stayed like that for a long time. The only sound in the apartment was the rain. I could sense his thoughts, unsure but hopeful, waiting to understand what I wanted. I turned slightly toward him, and he followed the movement with careful attention. His face showed a mix of wonder and fear, a look that came from inexperience. I knew then that he had never shared closeness with anyone, and the truth of that settled between us in a quiet and powerful way. When our faces drew closer, the moment was slow and full of hesitation. Lucien reacted as if he was learning each second. His movements were gentle and unsure. I guided him in a patient way, and he trusted every step. There was no music, no bright light, only the sound of the steady rain. The closeness felt honest and simple, created by two people sitting quietly in a small room. Later that night, he asked if he had done things correctly. His voice sounded soft, almost trembling with worry. I reassured him in a calm tone. The relief on his face was clear. His smile looked pure, like he had discovered something meaningful, but also fragile. He fell asleep near me with a peaceful expression that stayed in my mind long after. When I woke up the next morning, he was gone. His side of the bed was empty. The door of his room was open, and his backpack was missing. His phone was off, so I could not call him. I walked from room to room in confusion, trying to understand his sudden departure. The apartment that once felt calm now felt hollow. As hours passed, the silence grew uncomfortable. It did not feel like the quiet he used to bring. It felt like an empty space where something important had disappeared. I waited for a message from him, but none came that day or the next. I moved through the apartment slowly, trying to understand what had happened. The memory of the night remained warm in my mind, but it now carried a sense of worry. I sat on the couch where everything had changed. I tried to remember every moment, every expression on his face, searching for a sign that something was wrong. His innocence, his careful movements, his blush when he admitted he had never been close to anyone before, all came back to me. I wondered if he had panicked. I wondered if he felt guilt or fear. I wondered if he believed he had crossed a line he could not face. Days passed with no word from him. I checked the door each morning and the hallway each evening, hoping for any sign of him. The apartment stayed quiet in a new and unfamiliar way. It felt larger and colder without him. I had grown used to his presence, his small sounds, his gentle habits, and now those small pieces of routine were missing. Each night, I sat for a moment in his room, looking at the empty space where his books once stood. I saw the marks left on the shelf where his few belongings had been. His sudden absence felt like a mystery I did not know how to solve. I knew something meaningful had happened between us. I also knew he carried a level of innocence that made him fragile in situations like this. I did not know his thoughts in the morning he left, and the uncertainty began to weigh heavily on my mind. By the end of the week, I understood only one thing. Lucien was gone because of a reason he had not explained, and I needed to find it. The days after Lucien left moved slowly, and each one felt longer than the one before. I tried to continue with my work, but my thoughts stayed on him. I checked my phone often, hoping he would send a message, but the screen stayed silent. The apartment felt empty, even though he had always been a quiet person. I did not realize how much his calm presence had filled the space until it was gone. One morning, after many days of waiting, my phone finally made a sound. I picked it up quickly and saw a message from Lucien. The message was short and explained almost nothing. He wrote that he was sorry for leaving and that he had gone back home because he did not want to hurt me. There was no explanation about why he felt he needed to leave so suddenly. The message felt incomplete, and reading it made me even more confused. I read his message several times and understood that I could not stay in the dark. I needed to know the truth. I searched for information about his hometown, which he had mentioned only once. When I found the name of the place, I packed a small bag, bought a train ticket, and left the city that same afternoon. The train ride took 2 hours, but it felt much longer. My thoughts kept moving between worry, confusion, and the need for answers. When I arrived, the town felt quiet and simple. The houses looked old but cared for. I walked slowly through the narrow streets until I found the address he had written on his rental papers. I stopped in front of a small, tidy house with white walls and a clean entrance. I took a breath and knocked on the door. After a moment, an older woman opened it. She looked tired but kind, and she seemed to recognize me right away. She invited me into a small living room where the furniture was arranged neatly. I understood from the way she spoke that she was Lucien's mother. There was a worry in her expression, mixed with a hint of sadness. She told me that Lucien had spoken about me. When I heard that, I felt a sudden warmth, but it was followed by a growing fear. Her face showed that she had something serious to explain. She began to tell me about Lucien's father, who had died some years earlier. She said that before he passed away, he had asked Lucien to make a promise. His father wanted Lucien to wait until marriage before sharing physical closeness with anyone. It was a promise Lucien took very seriously. He had believed that keeping this promise was a sign of strong character and respect. His mother explained that Lucien carried this promise like a personal rule he could not break. As she spoke, the truth settled in my mind. Lucien had shared something important with me, something he had never shared with anyone. In his eyes, he had broken the promise he made to his father. He felt responsible for it and did not know how to face the situation. This was why he left so suddenly, without giving me a chance to understand what he was going through. I sat quietly in her living room, taking in every word. The explanation brought clarity, but it also brought a heavy sadness. I understood that Lucien had not left because of me. He had left because he felt he had failed someone he loved deeply. His mother looked at me with a gentle expression and said that he had been unsure of himself since that night. She told me he was safe, but needed time to understand his feelings. I returned to London later that day, carrying a mixture of relief and sorrow. I finally knew the truth, yet I still did not know if Lucien would return. The apartment felt the same as before, but I saw it differently now. Every small detail reminded me of him. The kitchen table where he read his books, the couch where we sat together, and the room where he slept now held the memory of someone who had once filled the space with quiet gentleness. 3 months passed. I learned to continue with my life, but thoughts of Lucien stayed close. I sometimes wondered if he thought about me or if he was still trying to understand what happened between us. Then, one morning, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, Lucien stood there with a suitcase at his feet. He looked thinner and tired, but his eyes held a new sense of intention. He stepped inside slowly. We sat on the couch where many important moments had happened. He explained that he had needed time to understand himself. He had spent weeks thinking about the promise he made to his father. He had believed that love needed to follow strict rules, but during his time away, he realized that real love was not controlled by old expectations. He said that he could not forget the honesty we shared, and he missed the calm moments between us. As he spoke, I listened closely. I felt no anger toward him. I felt relief. His voice shook slightly when he said that leaving had been the hardest decision he ever made. He said that being away showed him what he truly valued. When he finished, I took his hand, and he looked at me with a new level of understanding. We agreed to start again, but this time with more clarity and trust. Our relationship soon became known by people around us. Some co-workers saw us together and began to talk. They viewed him as an innocent man and judged me for being with someone like him. Rumors spread quickly. People believed that I had taken advantage of him. Their words were sharp and unfair. Even some friends grew distant when they learned about the situation. It felt painful to walk into work and hear whispers behind me. Lucien noticed the change in my behavior. He understood that I felt the weight of the gossip. He wanted to speak up for me, but I asked him not to. I did not want him to be pulled into the negativity that surrounded us. I tried to stay strong, but the comments affected me every day. At one point, I thought about ending the relationship to protect him from the judgment. I feared that staying with me would harm his reputation. When I shared this fear, Lucien did not accept it. He held my hand firmly and told me that he was not embarrassed by our relationship. He said that he cared about me and that he chose this life with me. His steady words gave me strength during a difficult time. We decided to face the world together despite the harsh opinions around us. 2 years passed, and our life changed. We left the busy city and moved to a quiet town by the sea. The town was peaceful, with clean air and open skies. We found a small house with a bright garden. Lucien began teaching engineering at a local college. He enjoyed his work, and his students appreciated his patient nature. Seeing him comfortable in his new life made me happy. I opened a small art shop in the town center. I sold handmade jewelry and paintings. The people in the town were warm, and they often visited the shop to talk or look at the artwork. My days became calmer as well. We developed a simple and meaningful routine. We walked by the sea in the evenings and watched the sunset. We talked about our future with a sense of peace. Sometimes we remembered our early days, the night he left, the rumors that spread about us, and the confusion we faced. With time, these memories softened. They became steps that led us to a calmer chapter. Lucien still had the same shy nature, but he carried himself with more confidence. His innocence remained a part of him, but it was no longer connected to fear. Our life in the small town felt steady and honest. The difficult times had brought us closer, and the new beginning helped us build something strong. What once felt like a mistake to him now felt like the moment when we learned to trust each other. Our connection had started with uncertainty, but it grew into something real and lasting.